Action! Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Church's Hollywood Moments with me, Thomas J Churchill, a.k.a. Church. And I want to say to you, I'm so excited to talk about what we're going to talk about. Today's episode is going to be very different than any other episode we've done before.
Hey, man, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's going to be fun for me from a personal standpoint, I guess, to chat with you. There's so many things about, I suppose, your career that at least I know of that I'm kind of fascinated by.
Okay.
When did, I guess, getting into this industry become something that you took more serious? Like, I feel like maybe a lot of us out there would say things like, oh, I want to be in the movie business, I want to be in Hollywood, but for you, where was that switch where it was like, this is something, it's not just something I'm saying because I see it on TV. This is actually what I want to do.
That's a great question. I guess it's been in me since I was a kid. I always wanted to be in the movies, always wanted to be an actor. I started off in the industry as an actor. And, just watching something on TV and then imitating it as a kid. My parents thought I had potential. So they ended up bringing me to these casting calls and everything else. And it wasn't until there was a movie called The Champ, which I think was Ricky Schroeder and John Voight. They were looking for a little boy that looked like there was a comic strip back in the day called Dondi. Olive complexion, dark hair, big eyes. So my mom thought I looked like a spitting image of Dondi. So we ended up going to this audition, and it was huge. And I became one of the top 5 out of New York City for it. So I was getting the bug in me because this is great. It's a big chance, And then they ended up casting John Voight, and they were looking for a blonde hair, blue eyes. So I didn't get it and went to Ricky Schroeder. But the acting bug, I got bit then, and I knew I wanted to do that as a child, and I wanted to be an actor growing up. Fast forward 16, 17 years old, I convinced my dad to buy a video camera for me. Back in the day, back in the mid-'80s, they were really expensive, and my father, bit the bullet and bought one for me, and I was going to use it just to showcase my talents as an actor. But it was then I fell in love with the process, the producing, the writing, the directing, and the acting ended up taking a back seat from what I wanted to do, and it was all about the directing now and the writing. And I made a bunch of movies with my friends and family. I call them the neighborhood films. They were that was like my college. It taught me how to make them, do them, edit them, put them all together and finish it, whatever money I had. Practically it was like a couple $100. So it kept inside the bug was getting stronger and stronger. And it wasn't until I pretty much did a movie called Devoured, which is available somewhere out there, but I'm going to re-release it on my YouTube channel shortly. Devoured taught me how to save the money, how to create a product, and how to finish a product. And it also taught me what I don't want to do, because when I did Devoured, I was not just the actor, the producer, the writer, the director, the editor. I was the caterer. I was the sound guy. I was the gaffer. I was everything. And as I finished that film, it taught me how to finish a movie without running out of the money. And I didn't have a lot of money for that one either. But it taught me at the end what my passion was. And my passion that I feel I'm the strongest in is telling a story, writing and directing and producing. That's when it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, this, I got to do this. I got to do this. But it also rewind a little bit. Right before I started, before I made my first movie at 16, 17 years old, I went to I went out to California for a trip. My sister, I was 15, and my sister took me out to California for a vacation, and it was just her and I, and I fell in love with Hollywood. And at the time, Hollywood was just filthy, but I fell in love with it, and that's when I realized I belong here. This is what I need to do. I have to make movies. And that's the following years when I convinced my dad to buy me the camera. So I guess to answer your question, and sorry, I'm Italian from New York. I'm long-winded.
I love it. I love it.
I'm also Irish, by the way. I guess to answer your question in a quick thing was, I knew at an early age I wanted to do this. As a child, I wanted to do this, but I guess I took myself serious more when I was doing it with other people's money. When people started to invest in me and make the movies, that's when I guess the business aspect kicked in, and I said, this is not a hobby. This ain't just for fun anymore. As much as I love it, it's my passion, and I still have fun to this day. I'm not jaded. I gotta, it's a business. And for people to put their hard-earned money into me, into my stories, I want to make sure that they get their money back. And on the flip side to investors, if there's any investors out there that are interested in investing in people, you got to let the people that you're investing in do what you want them to do. You can't play sideline quarterback or interfere or, get your hands dirty if you never did it before. Let the creatives be creative, because that's what you're investing in. And, not all films, as I've made, there's a lot of hands in a cookie jar, so to speak. When you start getting to different levels, there's studios, there's the executive producers, and not your vision originally that you set out to do could get changed because of influences and what they need to do and what they need. So your ending may not have been your original ending, or vice versa type thing. So you just got to stay to focus, believe in the process, and just follow your heart in what you do.
Is that difficult to deal with? I've heard so many different filmmakers, creatives, from, I suppose, the quote unquote top all the way down to, like, a fresh faced younger guy maybe who's trying his first movie or something. And the amount of people that mention experiences around these executives who like to get involved in the creative side after the fact. So maybe they've invested in you and your idea and what you're about, and then all of a sudden maybe you've got like 4 or 5 guys who've never done it before who have all these great ideas. And I think that's across the board. So like I teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and like there's a lot of people that I know of that have never trained ever, and like sit on the couch and would kind of, like you said, like it's the sideline quarterback idea. In your position, how difficult is it to, obviously, as you said, it's a business. You've got to kind of play ball to a degree, but I suppose to mitigate some of that, okay, yeah, we're playing with your money or your company's money or whatever, but you came to me, you want my vision, my idea, and not letting that be, I suppose, for want of a better term, like stolen away.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's easier on your own when you're doing the basic independent filmmaker out there that's doing it amongst his friends and family and colleagues and all. It's easier because you get to truly do what you need to do. But, however, as that project gets closer and closer to distribution, there's always going to be someone or that's going to help alter that story for them to make the profit or to get it distributed. There might be maybe some scenes that could be too graphic for distribution. So on those cases, yes, they can go in and alter your film and change things like that. But if they're talking about adding a scene with a rocking chair that just rocks at the end of the movie after you already told a story, then it's ridiculous. Then that person or so-called producers or who are executive producers, they just want you to know they're the boss. And they want to change things or tackle things just to make sure that they have something in that film as well. But on an average, yes, at the end of the day, the studio, your executive producer, they are the boss. But if you have a great executive producer or investor or studio and they believe in you, they'll let you do what you need to do. Because as I said, they're investing in you to tell that story. And again, if you wrote the story, nobody knows that story better than you as the writer/director. There's things when you're writing the script, you visualize it. When you get on set, you already know what you're going to use. You already know your angles, your camera angles, your lenses, how you see it, the locations. If you were there already, it's already in your head. For people to come in, they can suggest certain things. And I always, with my investors, now with my investors, I look at it as it's a collaboration, but they're investing in me to make the film. If they like the script and we're moving forward and doing it, they're allowing me to bring their return on investment back. And it's based on your vision because that's what they believed in, that's what they saw, and they liked the story. So they want to see that come alive. And those are the good people. I mean, those are the people that they're a good champion to have alongside of you. I've done some films in the past that you get, as you're making it, there's either hands in the cookie jar, or after editing, there's hands in the cookie jar after you already gave a cut in. And then I got people that had trusted the wrong people. Beyond who I am, like trusting other people to try to buy their movie and everything else. And then at the end of the day, if the movie did good or didn't do good, guess whose fault it would be? The directors. But the audience or, critics or internet critics where, people would just rip apart movies because they would just rip apart it. They're comparing a low-budget indie film to a $200 million Spielberg movie. And, and they're just criticizing, this, that, and the other thing, but they don't know all the details that filmmaker had going into that movie, or the criterias of what it cost them to edit, or how to add more things in budget-wise and everything else. Everybody, like you said, you teach jiu-jitsu. Everybody feels like at one point, I'm sure, they're sitting on the corner and they can do it better than you. And then when they're actually doing it, they can't. Because everybody's on their own path.
Yeah, and I'm always fascinated by the idea of something like, a critic or something like that. And there's some of them out there I do respect, but I do feel like, especially maybe now in modern day culture, it's kind of become, especially with the younger audience, I would say,
Yeah.
that negativity has become like the cool thing, or like negativity sells. So there is creators out there who are probably more popular in like the UK and stuff. And
Right.
I've mentioned them before, not specific names or anything, but like they do incredibly well online.
Mm-hmm.
But like I very, very, it's probably one in every 40, 50 episodes where they'll actually praise a piece of work at
Mm-hmm.
all. Everything is kind of what's negative, what's wrong, what's not right, what they would do differently, bad story, bad this, bad that. And I'm kind of like, I'm there going like, you've made your entire career based off of what you would do better, but you haven't actually done anything, which
Right.
sometimes it can be hard for me to take somebody like that serious. When you mentioned about investors and, return on investment, I don't know, like obviously the ins and outs, and we don't have to get into specifics, but let's say you're put in a position like that where, everybody's trying to put their hands in the cookie jar maybe after the fact, or people are like, oh, let's cut this out and let's change that, or let's change the edit, blah, blah, blah. And maybe some things get taken away from you after the fact. And then let's say the movie comes out and it's not as received as well as maybe you thought or they thought. Does that create an anxiety around creating then, as in the next project is like, I don't know how I'm trying to
No, I understand what you're saying.
ask the question, but like, is there, I guess, a constant anxiety there about the next thing has to be like the best thing? The next thing has to be the best thing all
Well,
the time?
there's I'm going to answer that, but I wanted to go back to the last thing you said about the critics. And then the one thing that critics will go, I mean, they're either bots or they're just, trolls. And the people that do that, like on your like YouTube, it's funny. It's like all the negativity of certain videos that I would put up or whatever. I'll go back and see who this person is. I thank everybody, because if you took the time out to watch something and you're going to criticize it, great. Thank you very much for stopping by. If you're going to stop, subscribe. But then you see someone that's been on, a lot of them have like 12, 15 years YouTube presence, but no subscribers. So it's like they're just people out there that are angry with themselves or whatever, and jealous, or someone you didn't work with, someone you didn't hire, or someone you had a falling out with. It's sad that we live in this society where people become more, they feel their strength is behind a keyboard, typing, negativity. Now, to answer your other question, you ever heard the expression, you're only as good as your last film?
Yep.
That's, people have short-term memories. And somebody once said to me, short-term memory, long career, long-term memory, short career. Apply that wherever you want. I feel if it's a studio or an investor that put their money up and they got their hands in the cookie jar at the end after I cut the film, I feel like I did my job. I submitted my work. I submitted my project. I submitted my vision, the director's cut or whatever. Here it is. And then if you're going to go in and chop it up afterwards, then ask me, oh, we didn't make the money or whatever. That's not me. That's on you. If you would have left it the way it was and kind of guided it out to the genres or the areas that I had indicated while making the film, things would be different. But if you're going out and changing things afterwards, or cutting out crucial lines, or tearing pages out of a script while you're filming the movie because you don't think you're going to make the time, or popping up, disappearing. Like, I had people in the past that would be on set as my executive producers, and then they would disappear, then come back and stop the movie because they wanted to see a vase in a corner of a scene that you're never going to see that vase. One person said, hey, can we put a red vase in that corner? we need something red. And I said, beside the brick wall that the actors are walking out of, you need something else red. So 20 minutes we went by to go find a red vase to go put flowers in a corner, in the corner of a scene which didn't need it. But again, this is where I stated that people just want to put their hands in something to let you know that they're the boss. And sometimes it's terrible. But you know, at the end of the day, you say to yourself, I'm making a film, I'm making another movie, I got my name on something else that's going to go out there. Hopefully this movie is going to be you know, out there. The more I like doing a variety of stuff. And does it give me anxiety for the next movie? No. I guess it just, if you're working with, you know, similar people, you kind of want to identify them type of people before you actually start filming. And then you can kind of turn around and know that, okay, we're going to go through it's the same path with these people as it was with the last, or, oh, this is a new group. This is great. They value art. They value the film. They value the story. What a great team. Let's do it, because there's nobody out there, and no director, no creative out there that can't. They have to do it with a team. Nobody's doing it by themselves. Steven Spielberg didn't do it by himself. He had Universal Studios behind him, and he had a good product, Jaws, that just launched him. Hitchcock didn't do it by himself. He had a great cast, and he had his wife, and he had Universal behind him. So there's always a great team behind that one person. They always say behind a good man is always a good woman. But behind a good artist, there's always a good team. And I like to say, in this next chapter of my life, I have a great team. You know, in the next 4 films that are coming out, I'm blessed and I have a great team.
And I suppose to kind of step outside of that into, I suppose, the personal realm, I've heard so many times, and so many people have given me like different styles of advice. Some people say, you know, don't have a plan B. The successful people always rise to the top when they don't have, when I say they don't have anything else, but like they can't see themselves doing anything other than what it is they're doing, in the sense of, you know, let's say in your position, you weren't sitting there going, oh, well, you know, if this doesn't work out, I can always go and be a dentist, or I can always go and be a plumber, or do something else. I've got a thing in the background. So many people I talk to are of the mind of like, this was it. Once I made the decision that this is what I loved, this is what I wanted my life to be, I was willing to do anything to make it happen. Then other people kind of say, well, you know, be a bit more realistic, have something in the back pocket if it doesn't, because, you know, sometimes if things don't work out. For you, in your personal experience, which one of those would you say that you, I'm not even saying to give advice to others, but like for you, where did you sit on that scales of?
Well, that's a two-parter, to give advice as well as to walk the path. I lived a dual life for a long time. I was making movies while having a day job. I did jobs that people made a career out of. I worked for Boar's Head. I was a carpenter. I worked in pharmaceuticals. I was a plant manager. I was an operations manager. Pharmaceuticals, I did about 20 years. And I would be making movies along parallel to it. Weekends, nights, holidays, you know, days off. It wasn't until in 2009, I was living in Wilmington, North Carolina. I was down there for a couple of years. I was working for a pharmaceutical company while doing my stuff. And I had a boss who, so every pharmaceutical company I ever worked with, after a few years, there's always a bigger company that wants to buy them up. And once they buy them up, there's usually 2 years before the company actually closes. That other big company, if they're taking the drugs or whatever, that why they're buying them up so they don't have any competitions, it takes like 6 months per batch of items. So if you're making tubes and creams and ointments, it'll take like 6 months for the FDA to give the new company their blessing so they can move that in for that stuff over to the new facility. So depending on the facility, it's about 2 years before the old facility closes down. So before the old facility closes down, the company would offer their key people a retention package. What that means is, stick around to the end and we'll give you extra money. We'll give you 6 months of money, yada, yada, yada. Some people panic if they got families and they can't wait for that extra little nest egg because they don't know if they're going to get another good gig, another job. During this time in North Carolina, I went back and forth to California during the summer of 2009. And I've shot a couple projects for people that I didn't know. They just hired me. I came out and learned, who they were. When I came back, and at the end of August of 2009, the person I was working with wanted to do one of my films and was interested in investing in it. And we were going to do it in November in New York. So I went back to North Carolina in August, and my boss said, "Oh, how you doing? How's everything? How was the trip? How was this?" Because I had days off, and he asked me, "What are you doing here?" I said, "What do you mean? What are you doing here?" "I'm working." "No, what are you doing here? This isn't your calling. I know what your calling is. You are a filmmaker. I don't need you here. I'm going to go get you a retention package. I'm going to give it to you, and you're going to get the hell out of here, and you're going to go make movies." I got scared. I said, "Why are you doing this to me?" I said, "I need it. I need the medical. I need this." He goes, No. He goes, "I don't know what's telling me to do this, but I'm going to kick you out. I'm going to give you some money, and you're going to go out and do what you need to do." I was scared. I was upset. I left, went back to New York, because we were going to make the movie in November. So I went back to New York in September of 2009. We shot this movie in 2009 in November. At the end of filming that movie in New York, the investor said, "What do you want to do? Where do you want to edit the film?" And I said, "I don't know. I didn't even think of that far yet." He says, "Well, why don't we go out to California? I'll pay for your move. You come out there, you live out there for about a year. I'll take care of you for a year. And then after that year, you figure out what you want to do." What? Now I'm scared because the little nest egg and the little money I just made, I don't know what I'm doing. So I had this black cloud over my head. What am I doing? What am I doing? So I was talking to everybody, and everybody's giving you all the different their responsibilities. Don't do it. Why? Don't go. Yada yada. My brother said to me, "What are you thinking of? This person is handing you your dream to move to LA, to Hollywood, to do a film, to work on a film that you just did. He's taking care of you for the next year. What are you thinking? You can always come back if you don't like it." I can always come back. I left. I did it. I haven't been back since 2009. I mean, I haven't moved, I moved from 2009 to Los Angeles, and I've been here for almost 16 years. And then, to try to stay alive, you do a few things to make some money here and there. But the safety net that you were talking about earlier, looking back at everything that I went through, I was doing Uber. for a little bit, driving ride share cars. And I finally said, my partner said to me, "What are you doing? Why are you doing that? You're a filmmaker. You shouldn't be doing that." I said, "Yeah, but I need extra money." "You shouldn't be doing that. That's the wrong job for you." So how fate had it, I left that. I took a leap of fate. I'm a big believer with God. I jumped face first into this business, scared. Was scared, absolutely scared, worried, without a safety net. I got rid of my safety net. And the safety net wasn't there to help me fall back. I'm looking back at it now. It was there to block me for what I needed. And if you believe in yourself and you follow your heart and you're 100% certain that what you do, no matter the job, no matter whether it's film or whatever your passion is, and you just go do it, of course you're going to fall. But it's how many times you can get back up, dust yourself off, and keep going. Because, again, if you keep that safety net, it's only netting you from your potential to grow. So, yes, as a person who had both and walking in my steps, I needed to remove the safety net to achieve what I needed to achieve.
I actually have, you won't be able to tell on camera, I actually have goosebumps listening to that. And I feel like it's such an important message that people need to hear in that format. I mean, we can all do the fancy edited YouTube videos of guys who say, do 1,000 push-ups a day and sleep 2 hours a day and do this and do that. And, a lot of that stuff is up in the cloud somewhere. But I feel like that this is a way more kind of reality-based thing. And the idea of, the amount of people that would say, "Oh, I just followed my dream and it was never an issue. It was my dream, so it made everything easy. I didn't worry." But when you said, like, about how afraid you were of, taking the safety net out, let's say, and walking the tightrope anyway, how did you even, I guess, overcome that? Because I feel like nowadays, especially, and definitely some of maybe the younger generations, like I'm in my mid-30s, so even maybe from my age down, we tend to maybe hype ourselves up and then everything else sets in, where maybe a close friend, a family member, and a lot of times for the right reasons, maybe from their experiences, they're like, "Oh no, Jesus, do not do that. Christ Almighty, don't go down that path. I'm telling you, you're going to regret it." And then that slowly kind of starts to seep back in maybe and make you go, "Oh, maybe I'm like on another planet here. I need to like..."
Well, I got an answer for that. I have an answer for that. Everybody that gives their advice, they're doing it from what they lived. Not everybody walks the same path. A lot of people that give advice and it's always the wrong advice. And when you're listening to it, you're like, "Yeah, I'm not going to listen to this guy." I don't feel the people that give the right advice literally, truly did what they wanted to do in life. Sometimes people might have had dreams of being a baseball player or a doctor, and then life throws curveballs at you, and you either catch them and follow that path because you have to, or it's frowned upon if you went after this way. So sometimes I look at it as the people giving advice are giving you advice because they want the safe road for you. It's not necessarily they don't want you to succeed. They don't know how you can do it because it's not their genre. It's not their forte. When I was a kid and I was in high school, after I made my first movie, my high school I went to was Franklin K. Lane High School in Brooklyn, and was never on the dean's list. The dean wished I was on his list because he was always trying to get rid of me. But the principal loved me. What a great guy. His name is Morton Damasak. And he got this. I had a lot of press for a kid making his first movie in the neighborhood and everything else. And I was in a lot of newspapers. If people want to go and read it, they can go to my website. It's ChurchHillProductions.com. So the principal called me in his office with a friend that I started making movies with, but since then he just followed his regular life. He's not in the business. And he said, we just got an invitation for you to go to a school, an elementary school, and talk about careers. I'm in high school. I said, me? He says, yeah, they want you to go there. You know, our guidance counselor will take you and pick you up and all, and they want you to talk about your career. I said, me? I said, I'm still in high school. What career do I know? Well, you know, you made your movie and this. So I went. I loved it. I went up and down the row, and I asked every kid, what do you want to be? What do you want to be? Everybody, there must have been maybe 100 doctors, basketball players, football players, policemen. And then there was that small group that wanted to be a teacher like their mother or wanted to be a fireman like their father. You know, but the ones that were so out there, like long shot, that we would say, oh, wow. I mean, that's the statistics is high. 1% would probably end up doing what they want to do because it's the thing inside of them. It's that voice that's just going to tell them to focus, to keep going, to keep going. Now, in my life, I sacrificed a lot. There was relationships. There was I missed weddings. I missed funerals. I missed birthday parties. I missed holidays because I was either working on a film or following what I needed to do.
Not to cut you off, and this is something before I forget my trail of thought here, because
Sure.
it ties into something else that I seen you had posted a little while ago on your Instagram about your birthday and your connection with your mother and stuff like that, which I thought was like, I was like, my teeth were nearly ground down to little butts trying to like hold it in, listening to that, because I could tell it was coming from such a real place, and I'm a little bit fascinated by that as well, about, you know, that resilience it takes. So, and I would even feel this in my life where I still feel like I'm holding myself back slightly for that fear of like, oh, well, maybe if it all doesn't work out, then what's going to happen? Or that worry about, well, if I take this step and I go here and something happens back home, will I resent my decision for the rest of my life? Not because it's not what I feel is my calling, because I couldn't see myself doing many other things, but that feeling of, I don't know, guilt or whatever it might be about situations like that. Was that something that you just had to nurture over time, and it's just that you have to, I don't know, reconcile with yourself and be like, okay, but look, this is the price of having to do what I have to do?
My brother once told me, because there was a point I was actually thinking about coming back to New York, you know, in the very beginning. You know, you get homesick and everything else, and then you're watching weddings and parties and Christmas, and you're by yourself on New Year's and all that other stuff. And my brother said to me, not everybody gets to go after what they have. No matter where you are, life is always going to be there. If you came home if your parents they're still going to get old. They're still eventually going to pass. Whether you're home or living your life, you're always going to get that call. And with me, I guess I have a little bit of resentment, but I feel like my parents are around me. I feel them, and I kind of see them on a regular, not fully, but just certain things that occur, and it's strange. Spiritually, I'm very spiritual and pro God. My father passed away in 2015, and it was right around the time I wanted to go home for a little bit. I haven't been home in about a year, 2 years, and I was thinking of going home in December for the holidays. And financially, you're like, if I need this and all. That's why the Uber thing came in. So I didn't go home for the holidays. I figured, okay, I won't go home for the holidays. I'll go in for the spring. And kind of, because my family would do a big giant, they go to a park, or my cousins, my aunts, and everybody else, and they do this big family thing for Memorial Day, and they do another one for Labor Day. So I said, all right, I'll go to Memorial Day, and I'll see everybody. Well, January 4th, my father passed. So that was in me and hurt me because I should have went. When you feel like you should. Just go in, whatever. That's a little sign inside of you. Fast forward. We were filming the movie The Amityville Moon, and my mom had cancer, and I didn't know how long she had left. So I was planning to go in. I remember the date, August 16th. I was going to go August 16th, 2020. I was going to go in and see my mom because we were filming The Amityville Moon the beginning part of the month. So I was like, okay, so when I wrap that, I'll go in and see mom. So the producers decided to push the dates on Amityville Moon. And it then carried into where we would wrap now on August 16th. So I spoke to my mom the Friday before on Zoom, on FaceTime, and I just told her that I wasn't. She was like, oh, are you in? And I was like, no, not yet. I said, this is during COVID and everything else. I said, I'm just finishing up this film. I should be done in a couple days, and then I'm going to get on a plane. Well, life gives what life gives you. I wrapped about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning on August 16th, 2020. My mom died 7 a.m. August 16th, 2020. So it bothered me. It bothered me a lot. And we were supposed to do a wrap party that night, and the producers canceled it for me and wanted to take me to dinner to see what was going on with me and if I'm okay. So I was sitting there with my producing partner, Alexandra, and these other two producers, and they're asking me questions about how I feel, if I'm going to go home, I'm going to go. Then we're outside in a restaurant, and all of a sudden there's a song on the radio right over my head. It's Tom Jones' song, The Green, Green Grass, which was my mom's favorite song. And that was a sign for me for my mom, that because when you don't hear Tom Jones on the radio, on a regular. I was named after Tom Jones. It's pretty funny. Well, somewhat. My mom wanted to name me Tom Jones Churchill, and my father laughed at her, but she got the first name and the middle initial. I'm not Jones, I'm Joseph, after my grandfather. But so she got somewhat her way. Funny, but when I heard that song on the radio, it made me okay, because I knew she was okay. She was with my dad. But, when life throws you stuff like that, I mean, I could have been there. I couldn't. I mean, it's life is going to happen no matter where you're at. So I know my mom and dad would have wanted me to still do what I need to do for me, for my life. And that's how you have to think. Because if you think about what if, should have, could have, it'll just eat you up, and it'll take over, renting space in your mind. And you don't want that. You just love and miss them, and have them in your heart and do what you need to do. So if it's you have to go somewhere, and you have to follow your heart because that's your destiny, then you need to do it. Everybody else will understand. Once you like when I moved out here and I was doing my thing, everybody thought I was crazy. My brother, my father at the time, they saw I did movies in the past, indie films and all, but it's like, oh, what are you doing? Just you had a great job in pharmaceuticals. You're a plant manager. Why'd you leave it? Why'd you do this? Once they started seeing that my films are on TV, in the theater, or streaming, or it changed, and they started being champions of the support for you, and that's what I need. The support from the loved ones to keep going, because when you got a good positivity around you, it's like a suit of armor, and you can just do anything and not worry about what if. What if? Don't say what if. Say when done. When I'm done doing this, or when I'm doing this. Don't say what if, because she's questioning yourself.
And I find it fascinating, even from like a personal standpoint. We kind of, I suppose, at times we can muddle through life and kind
Right.
of maybe don't take ourselves as serious as we should, or maybe our passion or our dream as serious as we should, and days turn into weeks, turn into months, turn into years sometimes, and life kind of just passes you by, and we
Yeah.
don't really seem to have, well, at least a perceived idea of like nobody feels anxiety in that moment. So
Right.
like, we'll let weeks pass by maybe, and we're not seeing the people we need to see, or maybe we're not doing the things. And then I don't know, like sometimes I'm like, is that an excuse? Is that my safety net? Is the excuse like, yeah, but the guilt I might feel if something happens while I'm away, etc., and kind of allow that to be like I don't say the easy way out, but time has passed here where I am right now, and at any point anything could happen. Anyone could pass away,
Right.
have an accident, anything could happen. And I don't seem to think about it that much. But then when I think about like a bigger step where I'm like, okay, well, maybe I need to take some time in this place, or maybe I need to move here for 6 months and see what happens when I get there, I start to kind of catastrophize and go, yeah, but what if in those 6 months everything goes wrong? And what if
Can't
some of my
think like that.
family passes
That'll
away?
eat
And
you
what if
up.
this? Yeah, and
That'll eat
it's
you up.
just it's fascinating to hear you talk about it in a, it doesn't have that Hollywood glitz attached to it, where a lot of times I think we're sold some kind of fantasy world where it's like, oh, well, you have no trials and tribulations, and everybody gets to be Steven Spielberg and Tom Cruise, and everything's
Right.
great. But again, we're not privy to their personal lives or what goes on with them. But
That's correct.
it's that, I suppose, social media version of
Everybody,
Hollywood is,
everybody's okay. Everybody's doing great.
yeah.
Type thing. Listen, when you gotta in this, everybody gets a shot at this planet once, and during that time, you have to do. We're all here for a particular purpose. At the end of the day, we don't know what it is. We'll all be judged if you're spiritual and everything else. But you're here for a purpose. And what you need to do is also love what you do. And if it's going here or going there and spreading the love in film or audio or shows or whatever it is people do, then you got to do it. You can't think about the what ifs, because the what ifs will bring you down. You can't think about, well, if I would have stayed, then if you would have stayed, you may not have been here. If you've been here, you may not have touched this person's life. If this person didn't get that life touch, it's like the movie It's a Wonderful Life. You ever see that?
Yep.
Where when he said, I wish I was never born at all. And because he was so, at the moment, selfish because he lost the money and he didn't know how to face that problem, he thought it would be great if he just said, hey, I wish I wasn't here. Then I would have never had that problem. But then if you weren't here and didn't have that problem, you might have not, you never touched anybody else's life that you were supposed to, or talk to that person, or bump into that person, or marry that person, or see that person, or have kids with that person, or be that person's father or uncle, or, we don't know. And that's the beauty part of life. And tomorrow, because tomorrow is not promised to nobody. And every day you live the life you have to, because tomorrow when you open up that door, it's a brand new day. You get to do it again. Something else, something new, something to help out. Having goals, having things to look forward to is great, because it makes sometimes the time pass. When I was a kid and I was in school, oh my God, between my birthday and Christmas, it felt like molasses. It was like, oh my God, when am I going to have oh my God. Or when you're graduating, or when you can't wait for the summer or whatever. It's just the longest 8-9 months ever. But now you turn around, you're like, oh my God, we're already in September? I felt like we just had New Year's. Like it felt 2 weeks ago, we just did New Year's. And we're in September just because you've been busy. And you're doing what you love to do. And, it's what we're here for. Of course, I miss my family. I miss my brothers and sisters. Of course, I miss my parents, but I feel like they're with me. But it's okay. It's okay to miss everybody. It's okay to do what you need to do and follow what's in your heart, what's your passion. And that's what drives you. That's what drives all of us. And
is there a part of you with your movies that you feel like you want to leave a legacy behind? And I don't want to make that sound kind of pretentious or some sort of like Hollywood, like, oh, I'm so great, everything's about me. I don't mean it in that sense.
No, I
think a lot of times,
exactly.
Like, a lot of these movies to a lot of different people will mean a lot of different things. Like I would have always used movies and things like that as like an escape from some of the other things that maybe would go on in life. And it's I can escape to this world and it makes me feel a certain way. I have a certain amount of nostalgia for like different things, and it always brings me that feeling. It reminds me of memories with, I don't know, parents or grandparents and things like that. And does that ever come into your mind while you're doing this? Or is that something that you feel maybe when people tell you about an experience, or maybe down the line, when you get older in life, maybe you'll look back and go, you know what, like I made some pretty like substantial things that will exist long after we're all gone.
Right. Well, that's a great question. I feel like all the films I've done already, they had a lot of my fingerprints on them. But I feel like my career is going to start or in the new chapter of what we're doing, because now with my partner, Alexander Zorich Hunt, my producing partner, and we just started a slate of films. 2 of them are already done, 3 Killer Pigs and Waxman. I feel like that's where my career is starting. Every project I ever did that I wrote, all have a lot of me inside them. Life experiences, values. It could be in a guy, it could be a woman, it could be whatever. But every dialogue that I ever written has a lot of me, my life, various spread out. I love making every movie I've done. Nobody ever. I mean, there's movies out there that turned out to be or bad or whatever it is, but nobody ever sets out to make a bad movie. As goes back to what I said in the beginning, where a lot of hands in the cookie jar. Every film I've ever done, everyone, whether I produced the movies or wrote, produced, and directed those films, or acted in those films, I had a great time making them. The life experience that I had making them, meeting people, growing, and building was phenomenal. And I'll always treasure those days. I'll always treasure the times. But going back, like my goal after I'm gone, long gone from this world, I would have loved to have my legacy would be, of course, awards, more awards, Oscars or whatever it is. And my films being dissected in film schools. The way that when I was in school and teacher would open up the film The Shining and say, what do you think Kubrick was thinking when he made this scene? And why did he choose this colors? Why did he figure out? I want that to do with me, because every film that I've done, it's all in the same universe. And if if the fans out there already understood that there's character names and stuff that pop up or whatever, and they're all in, as my DP, director of photography, always calls it the church verse. So there's Easter eggs in every movie that require to be, most movies are pretty much required to watch a couple times. Especially one of my personal favorites that we've done about a long time ago is Lazarus, Day of the Living Dead. When I set out to make that movie, I broke every rule that they said you can't do. Don't do a black and white movie. Don't do a period piece, and don't do anything that's like a slow burn. I wanted to tell a story with that movie that what if it was a prequel to Night of the Living Dead? What if it was also a biblical film, if you listen to it? And I also wanted to tell a story about, it's a love letter to Hitchcock. So if any people go out there and watch it, you take all those three things and then you can watch it and say, oh, that's pretty cool. Well, that's this, and that film, Big Freaking Rat, is a film that I loved doing. It was a love letter to creature feature films from the 80s, and I don't know if it's out by you guys, but I know in Germany it's called Big Bad Rat, and Europe it's called Big Bad Rat. And then my three Amityville movies I did, the Amityville Harvest, the Amityville Moon, and the Amityville Uprising. When I had an opportunity to make Amityville films, I didn't want to do the same stuff. I didn't want to do the same story about the house, about the DeFeo family, about the love. I didn't want to tell that story again. It's been beaten to death. I took a page from Stephen King, where his books all take place in Castle Rock. I said, what if in Amityville there was a vampire, or in Amityville there was a werewolf, or in Amityville there was this uprising? And it's my versions of Frankenstein, Dracula, and the Wolfman. I wanted to tell those type of stories. So looking back at those, and then there's a movie coming out that didn't come out yet called The Salem Chronicles. Hopefully it's the way it was when I left the film. That's one of my favorite projects. It's kind of like a Rosemary's Baby witch type of film. And then we got the 3 Killer Pigs coming out that I'm really excited about, that is just different. And Wax Man. So yeah, I guess legacy wise, every film I do would be a piece of something where somebody can go back and hopefully, like you stated, I like going to a movie theater and sometimes forgetting everything. And then when you're watching, you're relating to a character or story, or you get inspired and you leave the theater, you go, oh, wow, I should do that, you know, type of thing, you know, like situation. I don't know what I'm going to do, investment type thing, you know. And then when you watch a movie, you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. So, yeah. So I hope my films have impacts on other people's lives as well. Not, you know, just more to entertain, but as well as to inspire, I guess
Yes.
would be
Yeah.
my.
And I think, you know what, subconsciously, a lot of maybe more mainstream viewers go through that, but can't put their finger on exactly what it is they're feeling. Um, you know, I know a lot of people. I have a lot of like, I wouldn't even call them friends, but acquaintances maybe I went to school with and stuff that would
Right.
have, I know back then probably looked at me, and maybe some of them still do, and go like, you know, he's still in that like nerd like film thing he's doing, and we're like living in reality. But I see some of those people, they get affected by certain things, whether it be a movie or a piece of music or something, and maybe they can't put their finger exactly on what it's doing to them. So I think it is very much across the board. To talk of the Amityville movies, and something I noticed from watching like teasers, little clips, promo stuff like that. I had seen before you had posted stuff on your Instagram. It was an advert for the movie being shown, and it has such a, and I think it's the thing, especially that horror audiences are crying out for. It has such a nostalgic feel, where it feels like you said it's a completely different story. It's something I haven't seen before, which is what horror fans like. We do like originality, but it has that, I don't know how to explain it, that old school feel. It reminds me of when I was in Blockbuster and they would have trailers playing on the TV above the desk, or you know, you flick on a cable channel around October and it has like the 31 nights of Halloween, and it has all these like, they've kind of curated these different movies. Okay, you'll get your Freddys and your Jasons and things like that, but you'll
Right.
also get these other stories that maybe you wouldn't get to see elsewhere.
Right.
Is that something that you consciously think of, or does that come naturally to you? Is that just your style, I guess?
Well, my style, I guess, my influence in movie making. I mean, I grew up in the '80s, so I grew up with great. I mean, I think horror was was at its peak, amazing peak in the '80s, and I grew up with that. But I was also my dad, who wasn't in the business, but in introduced me to film. We would go to the movies, you know, if my mom, you know, after school, or if my mom was cooking on a Sunday, my father would take me to the movies. We would go see either Disney films or action or horror films. And my father would always close my eyes on like the nudity or the violence as a kid. And what inspired me was when he closed my eyes on like a horror scene, what I'm hearing magnified like 100 times in my head, and it scared me. And I was like, "Wow, this is great." This is even before I knew I wanted to make movies. It was more I wanted to be in movies. Um, with the Amityville trilogy, I mean, everybody always asks me, "Are you going to do any more?" I was going to do a few trilogies in Amityville, but when I started seeing a lot of people just putting on a lot of Amityville movies, that just was different. I'm not going to say bad or whatever, because everybody's an artist in some form. I don't want to piss on anybody's projects, but I just felt like, okay, maybe that train left already. But I do have one more solid Amityville film in me that I want to do. But with my Amityville films, setting out to make them, again, I when I was writing them, I wanted to do something completely different. And the strangest thing was recently I got about 6 months ago, I got a call from the New York Times. Some guy was doing a article on why there's so many different Amityville movies. And he learned that Amityville is like a genre. There's a lot of Amityville films. So everybody he was talking to said they wanted to do films like Tom Churchill. So he was like, I need to meet this Tom Churchill. I'm just me. I'm doing them because I'm what I feel. I didn't know I was being influential, influencing others to do styles. It was just what I felt I wanted to do as an artist, what I wanted to do and tell my stories. But the crazy thing with the Amityville films, a lot of people love them. And then you got your haters. But I'm very proud of them because 3 years in a row, it's on the Peacock network. Peacock announced their films for the Halloween season, and which starts from, I believe it starts for them, it's September to like the end of November or mid-November. And my 3 films are the only indie films on there amongst studio horror films. And that even though the people that I made the movies for, the ones making the money, it's something cool to look back at and say, wow, each one of those Amityville movies was in Redbox. Well, at the time, Redbox, you guys have Redbox out there too.
Yeah.
Each one was in there for over a year. Each one was on Starz Network, Peacock, Amazon, Tubi, and they got a great life. And the fact that it's 3 years in a row and Peacock is putting it back out, it's a cool, what's the word? I don't want to say achievement, validation for me. Because it's telling me, don't listen to the critics, listen to the people.
Yeah, because that doesn't happen by coincidence or by chance.
Right. So the people enjoy the work. I'm making movies, well, for the people. But the first person that I make movies for, that I have to like it, is me. Because as I'm writing, I don't want to write anything that's cliche, but if I'm writing something and it's like, oh, I want to see this movie, I'm my first critic. I'm my first audience. So if I'm writing it and I'm telling the story the way I'd like to make it, I'm excited because it's like, oh my God, this is going to be fun. This is going to be a fun movie. I never set out to say, oh, this is going to be a great movie. I don't believe in that. I feel like everybody, it's a team because you can't plan the outcome. Again, nobody sets out to make bad movies. Even Edward J. Wood, when he went out to make movies, he didn't set the bar to say, I'm going to be the worst filmmaker ever. But he's not. His movies are pretty inspiring, actually. But yeah, so when you're making the movies, you're making them for yourself. After you make them for yourself, then you birth it to the audience, and that's
that in that process. Then it kind of ties on to something else that I wanted to ask about. The creative aspect of all of this.
Ask me whatever you want. I'm all yours.
Is this
I got no rush.
Do you sit down and do you start with a title? Do you carry, I don't know, a notebook or a journal where you just jot ideas? Do you I've heard of people saying, well, I take one day a week and I try to take walks through the city, or I try and go to coffee shops and watch people and try and get something going. Is it just when you feel it? Do you set out times to be creative or try and come up with a story? Where does it, or how does it go for you?
I guess my process would be, I see it in my dreams and in the shower. Those are pretty much where they come on a regular. And then I'll if I'm sleeping, I'll wake up in the middle of the night or whatever and grab my phone and just type a little bit in notes, or send myself an email so I don't forget it. Then in the shower, sometimes I'll just visualize a lot of things. Sometimes the titles come at the same time. Sometimes you come out, you're thinking about a title. And like the original title for Big Freaking Rat was Meridian, which is a form of a rat. And then I said, would people want to see a movie called that, or what would they think? But it's a fun film, so why don't we just call it Big Freaking Rat? And that's where that title came from. With the Amityville trilogy, I wanted to do something for the fans where they would have their own little box set, and it should say Harvest Moon Rising. So the Amityville Harvest, the Amityville Moon, the Amityville Rising was the original title. And then there's somebody, that at the end changed the title on you because they didn't want you to have that title. I don't know. And they made it Uprising. And instead of the Amityville Rising, it became Amityville Uprising, which it is what it is. Again, people, I don't know why they changed it, how they changed it, but obviously I can't have my Harvest Moon Rising titles anymore, together. Now it's Harvest Moon Uprising. So, but it was mainly, I wanted to do something like that for the fans, to be something different and something cool where those three Amityvilles would stand out if they were buying them in DVDs, and they're all next to the Amityville movies. It would just have its own little trilogy. And those three films interact with one another. And, like I said, sometimes there's a lot of hands in the cookie jar when you're making it. Like one of the actors that's in Moon, the title of the actor in Moon is supposed to be one of the actors, the character in Harvest, but it's played by a different guy, so people don't realize that. But
how important is that for you? You mentioned, for fans and the audience to have like the box set, and that's such a unique thing. And I think I would say at least, it's very exclusive to the horror genre, where like when people dig something, I know they can be very cruel and there's a lot of negativity out there, but I feel like the horror community, when they get behind something, like they get behind it. They want the box set, they want the Blu-ray box set, they want the 4K version, they want the alternate artwork, they want this, they want that, they want all the extras. They want director commentaries. I feel like that's kind of becoming a thing again now. You'll notice time and time again, movies will get re-releases with like their big special edition, which will have like, a 40-page booklet, maybe some lobby cards, new director commentary, maybe producer commentary, all these different things.
I love that.
Yeah, is that important to you? Because like you feel like, to me from the outside looking in, I feel like you're quite open to cracking different codes with like social media and like your own website, and you've got your kind of own hustle, but you're also a working filmmaker and a producer and you're kind of trying everything and trying to make it all work together. Is that something that's important to you, and is that something that you could see yourself trying to continue going forward? Like, do you think about that?
I love that as a fan. I love collecting stuff like that. And we're planning to do stuff like that for like 3 Killer Pigs and Waxman. And the movies that we're going to do, The Avenging Angel, all this stuff. And when you have a lot, when you can do things, and it's not, like when you're working with, obviously, other companies, they don't see that. They wouldn't do that because they have their own way of doing business. But that what I can control with my company and my products moving forward, we do plan to do all of that. Alex and I were talking about various to do for the fans for 3 Killer Pigs. The funny thing about horror fans is, as you said, they'll get behind certain things, and then they'll say that they want new stuff, and then when you give them new stuff, there's weird critics because it's not what they are used to. So they either want new or want the same old stuff. It's funny. I had a discussion with somebody, and they asked me about why, with the Freddy movies and the Jason movies and all, how come the audience is not, standing behind like the remake of Elm Street? And I said, because the fans don't want to see another reboot. They want to see continuing stories. So give the fans what they want. Give them another Freddy story. Give them another Jason story. You don't need to go back and see, oh, this is how it began. He saw his mother get her head chopped off, or this guy got burned by Nobody cares. They just want to see the product. That's why Terrifier is a successful horror
I was
franchise.
literally going to ask that, what your feelings are, as someone in that space, to see that, where I mean, I even have an Art the Clown tattoo. It's gotten to that thing where it's in the zeitgeist now. And I know some people could say, oh, it's one of the, I love that. I've seen that before. I'm taking a trip to Orlando in a couple of weeks to do their Halloween Horror Nights, and Terrifier great. Is one of the houses. Art the Clown is basically the icon for the event, and it's such a to see. I remember I went to see a movie at the Dublin City Horrorthon in October 2013, a movie called All Hallows Eve. And the reason I went to see that movie was because there was this weird ass clown on the cover. And I was like, I want to see that because that looks different. That looks kind of strange. And to see 12 years later that the movie, the most recent movie made 100 million. It was released in theaters, even over here. A lot of times we don't get to see a lot of that stuff in theaters. I have to search it out online. Right. I have to reach out to filmmakers and be like, is there any way I can get a screener? This is not even just to get it for free. I literally can't get it here. I can't see it unless I'm reach out. Does that give you inspiration then as well to go these things, I can get these out to huge audiences? There's potential here.
Yeah.
For this to be believed in.
Of course. I mean, Damien, we come from the same city. I haven't never met him as of yet. But I feel what I like about, I respect him. I respect the hell out of him because this is a guy who followed his heart, followed his dream, knew he had a cool character and wouldn't take no for an answer. Because I believe before All Hallows Eve, he tried Art the Clown and something else. And then there was
Ninth Circle.
There was something there, and then he did it All Hallows Eve, and then there was something else, and they weren't successful, but he believed in the character. Then he made a short version, and then he made the first Terrifier. And the first Terrifier, was different. Was good, but it was different. Terrifier 2 had more of the genre recipe, the ingredients, and that's what made that very successful. And then the cool thing is I heard that all the studios and the agents were wooing him to come out, and they want to do this and they want to do this for him, and when they started asking him what he wanted to do next with the, and he's like, oh, I got a third one I want to do. He's like, well, they were trying to reboot it, less blood, less this.
That's
more
exactly
Hollywood.
What you were just talking about, where I seen he was on, I think it was Michael Rosenbaum's podcast, and he talked about that. He was like, yeah, they tried to, after number 2, They said, "Oh yeah, we'll give you all this bunch of money to make another one, but we're going to call it Terrifier, and we're going to do all this other stuff." And to sweeten the deal, I think they were even telling them, "Look, we might get our hands on Jason Voorhees, so like we could sign a deal and maybe like have something in it that like you'll be like the guy for a new Friday the
Yeah,
13th movie." And he was like, fair play. It's like it reminds me of like some of the stuff you've said before, where it's like when I know something, I don't need to hear everybody
that's
else's
correct.
stuff.
So he stayed true to his guns. He knew what he had. He knew the fans were backing him being successful to what he offered them. And he knows that the fans want to see something like that. So he said, no, thank you. And went and did Terrifier 3 his own way. And it made almost $100 million from a $2 million budget. And then Terrifier 2, I think, was a $250,000 budget. And that made like, I think that made 20 million or something like that.
Yeah.
So he took 2 million from that, rolled it over into the third one, made it bigger, and it was a good financial move for them. And now I think he's doing another one, and he's calling it. He says he's going to do more of an origin and maybe the final Terrifier. But you got a character, keep going, keep going. Like the fans want to see him, just put him in different storylines. You want to tell the beginning, great, but then just continue them. Same way, I wish there was another Freddy. I mean,
Yeah.
I still think Robert Englund might have one more in him. He doesn't have to be the stunt guy running around. Put a stuntman in that. But for medium shots and from here up, throw Robert Englund one more time in the makeup. He wants to do it. Do it. Fans will come out.
Yeah, it's funny, like, because even with something like the newest Halloween trilogy, and I know it made a bunch of money and stuff, but I feel like maybe it didn't have that thing that they were expecting. And again, I think it's because I don't know, like some of those, I seen people online talking about, well, why are some of the like weird, like not so good Halloween movies more highly regarded by the community than the Blumhouse trilogy? And it's like we talked about, like Halloween 4, the Return of Michael Myers, Halloween 5, Halloween 6. Like even Halloween 6 has a huge fan base nowadays. And like it's such a weird movie. There's like a producer's cut, a theatrical
The
cut.
producer's cut's actually a good film.
Yeah. And like it has such an audience, and some people are like, oh, it seems to get more praise than some of those newer Halloween movies. And I think that might allude to what you said about like the fans don't want you to reinvent the wheel again and tell me about Michael Myers again and about the origin and about the thing. And I don't need to hear that over and over.
And Halloween 3, what was it? Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends. So Halloween Ends, we went to the movies to see a Michael Myers showdown with him and Jamie Lee Curtis, and then we end up getting this babysitter kid that grew up and became the killer. Why did we write this in? So it was, and you're supposed to be a fan of the series. I don't think any fan would have said, kind of like if you go back, but it's such a fantastic movie now. But if you go back and look at Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, that didn't do well when it came out because you're calling it Halloween 3. So
Yeah.
fans are thinking Michael Myers is part of it. And he's not. But I understood what John Carpenter wanted to do, but the studio wanted to do the same character. He wanted to do every year there was going to be a different Halloween movie about a different horror topic, like this Twilight Zone. But watching Halloween 3 now, it's so brilliant. It's such a fantastic film. And the only problem with it is it should have never been called Halloween 3.
Yeah, you kind of push it right in the middle of a franchise there, and it kind of has no place.
Right.
At
Like
all,
Friday
really.
the 13th, what was it? Jason Goes to Hell. What do you see? You see Jason maybe for 5 minutes, and everybody's just walking around with the spirit in them. I mean, fans that came out to see Jason, but I saw that in a theater. I saw all of them in a theater, except for the first one. I was a kid.
In your, because obviously I know you're a fan of a lot of this stuff and an audience member, but as somebody who actively works in the industry, why do you think it is that bigger studios want to do that? Like, I mean, in my head, I would feel like there's obviously probably a research team or something for a lot of these companies. Like, surely to God, they sit there and they scroll through the internet, and within 5 minutes, like, I could make the assumption of, okay, I can tell a huge portion of the core audience of this want us to just, see another story in that world with that character. Why do you think it is they keep trying to reboot and reimagine and redefine, and then they've, I think they've even created like new words now. It's like, well, it's not a reboot, it's a requel, it's a sequel, but it's like restarting the universe and all this stuff. And I'm like, why is that though? What's the bottom line there with the reasoning?
Well, they look at, as you said, there's a team of researchers. They go back and see, okay, what was popular with our what did we have in our library, in 1985? What was popular? The movie, I don't know, let's just say, let's pick Friday the 13th, Part 5. When that came out, it was different, because it wasn't really about Jason. It was about a guy, an ambulance guy, who dressed like Jason and went around killing people. But it still had all the ingredients for a Friday the 13th movie, where you saw the blood, you heard this, he's dressed in a mask, yada, yada, yada. So if somebody's turned around and said, all right, 1985, that movie made a lot of money, let's reboot it, and let's put it out now and call it something else, or add something, or it's different audiences, and that's what they don't understand, the studios. It's different audiences that sat in the movie theater, different 15-year-olds that sat in the movie theater in 1985 as opposed to the movie theater now. 1985, there was no internet. There was no instant gratification, all these social media pages. They didn't have any of that. That's why they try very hard to make YouTube celebrities movie stars, but they can't, because their audiences are only seeing them for short formats. So nobody's really going to sit in a movie theater for 90 minutes and watch a movie. And this is what they don't understand. And they're all surrounded by, yes people. They need true people to say to the studio system, no, the audience don't want to see that. Well, why? We made so much money here. No, it's not about the money. But in this day and age, it's all corporations. It's all about the product. How much can we get this water bottle brand to be in this scene? How many can we do? It's all, watch a movie. Next time you watch a movie, they're all commercials, pretty much commercials. Pepsi this or Coca-Cola or beer. It's everything. And brand integration and brand product placement was always in movies. If you go back to the 80s horror films or slasher movies, it was Coors. You'll see everybody with a Coors bottle. And Coors was just trying to get themselves going, and get the branded. And horror people loved, to drink or watch horror. And I guess the audiences today are different. Terrifier hit a nerve with the horror fans of yesterday, because it felt like the horror films of yesterday. That's why they came out and supported it. It's a good horror film. It's fun. It's entertaining. It's bloody. It's gory. Horror fan that's checking all the boxes. It's not like, you got to check the other boxes in the studio world, to be diverse. You be this, you be that. Tell the story. Don't worry about how many, Italian guys you got in a movie, or you got how many African American people you got, or how many girls you got. Tell the story the way it's told, and the audiences will come out. Well, if it's an Asian horror film, make an Asian horror film. Cast what you need to cast to tell that story. I don't believe in doing a film just to please people before the story. The story is what's going to please people. They'll come out. Tell a good horror film, they'll come out. Tell this, they'll come out. But if you're going to recycle and hand feed things, like I'm excited for, it's not even a horror movie, but the new Tron movie.
Yeah.
I grew up with Tron in the 80s, and it was good. And then it took, about 16 years ago, Tron 2 came out, and it did pretty good. People were like, whoa, that was pretty different. Now you got a third one, 16 years later, and it's still got Jeff Bridges in them. It's exciting. It's exciting. It's I guess with me, going back to the 5 movies that inspired me to make movies was the King Kong, 1976. That was the first movie I remember actually seeing in a theater, and I loved it. And then the following year was Star Wars, and then the following year was Superman, and then a few years later, Beverly Hills Cop, and then a few years after that, Batman.
Batman, right? Yeah.
Those are my 5 films that inspired me to do what I want to do. And look at them: horror, action, fantasy, sci-fi. Because King Kong's considered a horror film, no matter how you look at it. But so all the genres is present to what inspired me. But yeah, I mean, I guess studios need to listen to the fans on what they get, even though the studios control what you see and what they want you to see. But there's many times where movies, they put so much money into it and it bombs. It's not because it's a bad movie. It's either the marketing or the promotion doesn't match the film, because they don't understand who to market it to. And I don't know. I think the people that do the studies, the so-called yes people, they should come from different genres in the studio system. Horror should have its own group of people. Action should have its own group of people. Family, sci-fi, dramas, all group. That is true. They can back up that themselves because they have the true stats. When we were pushing Big Freaking Rat, and I was trying to get it made with the studio, this group I was working with, the first person that read the script was a young kid. And they asked him, "Were you going to do it?" He says, "No." He goes, "No." They passed at first. And I said, "Why'd you pass? It's a fun story." And the kid said, he was 22, 23. He says, "Come on, how can a rat kill somebody with its tail?" I said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "What's the name of the movie?" He says, "It's called Big Freaking Rat." I said, "Yeah. Do you understand? It's a big freaking rat. The tail alone could kill you." So he had to reread it and understand it, and it caught on. And then the guys that were going to produce it loved it anyway, loved the story, even before the kid said they should pass. Same thing with Amityville Harvest. He read it, didn't like it. But here's the thing: you're giving a script to a kid who doesn't like horror. He likes action karate films. So, but you're giving him a horror script to read and get his honest opinion. This is where they fail in the studio system.
Yeah, and I hear that like time and time again as well. That things like that happen. I suppose going forward for you, you've had so many projects kind of come out, quite regular, and like even through the pandemic and things like that.
I'm grateful and blessed for that.
Yeah, and it's great to see, that people can still be out there and kind of champion this stuff. How important was, you mentioned things like social media, but I'm sure you're quite aware of like as much of a detriment it can be in a way, because I feel like it's probably lessened attention spans. Everybody wants to see everything in the length of a TikTok video. It's like, the idea of like trying to explain to somebody now, at one point we had to rent a videotape, and like you had to rewind it, and if that's the movie you rented, that's the movie you watched. There is no like, oh, I
Right.
don't like this one. I've infinite access to everything. That didn't exist. Or if you wanted to catch a movie on TV, if you didn't catch it at the time, then I guess you got to wait till the next time it's on TV, or
Right.
you've seen it halfway through. Um, but like obviously, I'm sure it's not lost on you the importance as well of social media and being somewhat savvy and active in that area. Is that something you actively think of? Like I seen, um, you had the likes of Wet Movie One and stuff. Brendan, he was doing some stuff on Waxman, and like he done a video and things like that. And I always see Sean Phillips, cool duder, comment on your work, and he always has nice things to say about you. Is that something that's like I've heard it mentioned by some of these PR companies that work with Sony and these different things over here, and people will tell me like, it's slowly starting to dawn on the bigger companies that, okay, I've got 10 million followers on Instagram, but I only have 5 interactions, or I have 10,000 followers on Instagram and 9,000 of them are diehard fans.
Right.
Is that something that you're actively keeping an eye on? Like people like
Well,
Brendan and Sean and things like that? Because they have a very, like, a diehard, like, movie lover audience. And I'm not saying that that's you strategically do that, but is that something that you recognize as like that's important to the bigger picture?
the social media, I guess the social media is really good to help promote the films, because I know most people are on social media, and actually you may get people watching something from what you posted as opposed to seeing a billboard or something, because that maybe that billboard that the studio financed to put up is nowhere near anybody's house or wherever. I'm learning in my years now that social media does play a big part. And yes, I'm grateful for Sean and Brandon to for their kind words of everything they ever said about me on my films. Um, I guess that's one of the reasons why I also started my YouTube channel, Church's Hollywood Moments, which is anybody watching, subscribe, please. No, I'm
Which
kidding.
I love,
Oh,
by the way, and the links for it will be down below in the
oh,
description.
thank
I
you
love
very
the
much.
vlog style thing, and like getting to see some of the behind the scenes, because I feel like anybody who's really into this stuff, that's the next level. Because
But
I suppose that's the good thing about the modern day is we can kind of break that fourth wall,
right,
and like, as a kid, as a teenager growing up, I would always see these things and I would think, what would it be like to be able to see like what Steven Spielberg is like on set, but a real version, not one of those like
right.
glitzy Hollywood, like, sit in the director's chair and say, well, today we had coffee and we done this
Well,
and
that's
everything
the
was great.
thing. That's the studio.
Yeah. But to see
You
the
know,
real
push.
version, I think people love that, which is what I like about what you're doing in all
Thank
these
you.
different areas.
Thank you. We when we set out to start the show, we wanted to do something different. Of course, it's mainly supposed to be about a day in my life of filmmaking, living in Hollywood, a guy from New York, and I try to give as much as pulling back the curtain to reveal a lot. But we shoot so much videos, and I forget that certain videos. I'm like, oh, I forgot about putting that up, and that's my kryptonite, because I forget a lot on, because I'm, as you said earlier, we're all focused and doing this, and all of a sudden weeks go by time. Then I was like, oh my God, I didn't post a video in a couple of weeks. Let me go back and do one. So um, doing this thing, I mean, I'm blessed that we're now our office is at the Sunset La Palma studio, and I have access to the studio to walk around and do stuff, which, I Love Lucy was the first 2 years of them airing came from that studio, and Mr. Ed and Green Acres and the Adams. It's just filled with history. And knowing that my office is there and we're out there, it's just, it's 100+ years of history. Howard Hughes, James Cagney, Francis Ford Coppola used to own the studio. Well, I don't know if you saw last week's show. We put up, we talk about the studio and how we got involved. But yeah, we're going to use that platform more also to show, like, once we start getting more into the promotion with 3 Killer Pigs, where we will be showing you a lot of content from behind the scenes of that as well. Because again, in a day where, as we talked earlier with DVDs, I would have put a lot of this stuff as behind the scenes on the DVD, but we're still going to put out DVDs and Blu-rays with our products that we're doing, starting with the 3 Killer Pigs. And there'll be a commentary, there'll be behind the scenes, there'll be maybe a soundtrack with it. I don't know yet. That's Alex's department when we're planning stuff. But for doing like the YouTube show, I want to give my fans and people that are just learning who I am based on movies a little insight of real Hollywood, not, as you said, it's like, hey, I'm Tom Cruise and I'm scaling this building. But again, if you were able to follow Tom Cruise, you might have other things about Tom Cruise that nobody knew about, maybe, so it's a difference between the stars and the studio system and me, independent. And I like showing people my journey, because if I can help and inspire others to lose the safety net and follow their dream, whether it's, crafts or, whatever, buying cars and rebuilding them or whatever it is, being a baseball player, I want to help inspire and show people that it's okay. You can fall, but just get back up and keep going. If you quit.
I have 2 more things I want to ask you.
Sure.
And I would say that's a lie. I have 100 more things I want to ask you, but what I would like to do is, because I'm conscious of time and things like that, maybe I'm going to cut it down to 2, but I'm also going to say on air, I would love to do this again at some point, whether it be before the end of the year or something like that again. I would love to talk more and get more involved in things to do with you, because I've really enjoyed this conversation from a personal standpoint. For people who are just maybe discovering you now, or have seen a movie maybe and are now connecting the dots and going, all right, okay, I want to get more into it. Where are some of the best places that people can either support or kind of keep in the loop with what's going on?
I guess my social media pages, my website, and of course the Church's Hollywood Moments YouTube page. My social media is, just Google my name and it'll pop up. My Facebook, I'm on it a lot. That's what comes up. And then the website also, but I think the Church's Hollywood Moments is probably more up to date with things, as well as like my Instagram and all. Yeah, those would be the things if people want to know who I am, or
the links to all that stuff will be down below in the description. So wherever you're watching this, listening to it, all the links to
IMDb. If they don't know any of my films, they can look me up on the IMDb and watch some of the films if they haven't heard or seen any of my work. And I encourage them to don't judge me based on a movie you watched. But I do say, again, I feel like my career is, second part of my career is going to be opening up with the 3 Killer Pigs, and I'm very much excited about that film hitting the world.
I really, really want to ask you about it, but I feel like maybe it's not the right time. And if we wait, we might actually be able to get into like a real, like a much deeper conversation when it's like when you're in like full promo kind of mode. Um, to round this all out, then I guess, and with to keep a focus on, because I know that you have other loves and other things you're interested in, but to keep it focused, I suppose, on horror. A question I always like to ask, because I always get a different kind of answer. They have a similar thread, I think, through all the answers, but they're always different. Is why horror, and what does it mean to you?
Um, that is a great question. I guess horror means a lot to me. I mean, any movie I do, it means a lot, but the genre of horror, I guess it goes back to the days of my father taking me to the movie theater. My father was the one that first taught me who Hitchcock was. Um, Even though I watched my first Hitchcock movie on television, which was Psycho. Um, but taking me to the movies and covering my eyes on either the violent scenes or the nudity, and at a, I guess, what am I, 7, 8, 9 years old, 10 years old. Uh, my father, I want to also say, my father didn't just say, let's go take this little 8-year-old to a horror film. It would be our decision. Do you want to see this movie? Do you want to see this? And then he tells me a little bit about the films. So, for example, like, let's just say he covered my eyes on the violent, the bloody, and the nudity. But my ears, as I stated earlier, would enhance the what I'm not seeing would scare the hell out of me.
Yeah.
And I always thought that when I make a movie, what's really important to me is the sound, because that was my first scare, was the sound, then the visual. So if I can scare people by just sound, whether it's a score or sound design, and then the visuals, um, it takes me back. I feel like I achieved my job, and it also takes me back of the simpler times when with my dad. And so I guess, yes, that's the reason why I love horror, is because of my dad. My dad introduced me to it. And the very first movie I remember seeing in a movie theater, where I sat and I watched from the opening credits to the end, and I had the board game, and I had toys, and I had posters, was King Kong, when he climbed up on the Twin Towers. And that is a horror film. And that was the first movie I remember, and first movie I fell in love with. And then everything else just fell into place. Um, he introduced me to different types of horror, the slasher movies, the suspense, the psychological thrillers, the slow burn, and every one of them, there was something about that, like somebody asked me, what's my favorite horror movie that I made? And I answered that by saying, I haven't made my favorite yet, but I look back at all the horror movies I've made, and every one of them was a great experience making. So it's truly, it's a great business. It's a great genre. The fans are spectacular. The fans are true fans, and they're amazing. And I like telling stories for the fans as well.
I think that's a perfect way to round out the conversation as well. And it's kind of fantastic because it's sort of a full circle thing where, you talk about that experience or those experiences with your dad and so many other people. Like I have that with my grandfather. I've heard so many different stories of people having similar experience. And it's kind of cool because it's nearly a full circle thing where you may not know specifics right now, but people are having that exact experience with something that you've created or may in the future, which I think is like it's such a cool kind of full circle moment in a way. And it shows like the cycle of how this all works and what it's actually about. This conversation has been fantastic. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I had no prior prep, as in no questions prepared. I had nothing like that. I just said I was just going to go in and have a real conversation.
Awesome.
And I feel like a lot of stuff you said is going to resonate with a lot of people. Some of that advice, I feel like that's one of the bigger anxieties for a lot of people nowadays, is having that burning desire and then
Right.
not being sure, or maybe being talked back out of it. And
Right.
for better or for worse, people maybe think they're doing their best for you, and they tell you stuff like that, and they say, maybe don't do that. I want you to be okay, and I want you to be safe. I don't want you to risk anything,
Right.
And a lot of people spend most of their life, I would say, with that thing in the back of their head saying, like, you probably should just pack this up and go and do it.
I think
I just think it's important for people to hear what you had to say, and in real terms, not giving it the Instagram or the TikTok friendly version where it's like, well, do this in 10,000 hours and do that thing and have lots of money.
Right.
A more real approach.
I think anybody's career or anybody has to be mindful of the advice they're going to give to someone that already has that thing in them that they already want to go out. They want to go out on a journey and explore whatever it is that is calling them. You have to look back at it like the very first time, I guess, you got on a bicycle, there was somebody holding it for you to get there. So as you're pedaling, they're still behind you holding it. That's your safety net. Remember? But when that person let go, you were doing it on your own. And of course you fell, but you got back on the bike. That's life. The bike is your career. The bike is your journey. The bike is your ambition, your goal. And you got to get on the bike no matter how many times you spill out. Just keep in mind, the person that's holding that bike for you originally is now on the side cheering for you. And they do want the best for you. But they don't know your journey. They just know what they didn't do. And maybe that's what's eating in them and their regrets and their remorse about opportunities that they didn't take, or because of someone else telling them. So it's kind of like a downward spiral. And they don't know that they're giving you wrong advice and telling you don't do it or do. They just know that it's safe. But you don't want safe. You want what's meant for you. And you need to clip those wings. You need to clip the safety net. And you need to set your goal and go after it.
I love that. Look, this, like I said, it's been fantastic. I could say it over and over again. I would love to.
I had a great time. Thank you.
I would love to revisit and have another conversation maybe towards the tail end of this year. 100%. I would love to get more involved and do whatever I can to help and interact with you more.
I appreciate it.
For everybody listening, for everybody watching, whatever platform this is, whether it's Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Rumble, wherever you're checking this out, go down below in the description. All the links to everything we've spoken about will be down below. And we'll see everybody real soon in the next episode. Like I said, I appreciate you taking the time. It's been
Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
And I can't wait to do this again.
Same here. Thank you. It's the little things like this that make me happy. Thank you, everyone out there that has subscribed or continue to watch our show. I am blessed and grateful by you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Come visit our swag store, Church's Hollywood Moments swag store, as well as Churchill Productions swag store. Come visit us. Your body a little bit while you're doing it. Cut! Cut! Wrap! Good job, everybody!